What is up, beautiful people? This week we're talking about the TMNT IDW collection, Volume 6. Let's get into it. Now, this review is going to be a little bit different than my other ones because there is not one consistent writer throughout this whole series. This is a collection of stories within the IDW TMNT universe put into one book that all kind of came out around the same time. So this collects Mutanimals, the 4-issue miniseries, issues 45 through 50 of the main TMNT ongoing series, the free comic book day special, as well as the Casey and April 4-issue miniseries. So I'm gonna try to divide this video into 3 different chunks, going over each different part of the book one by one. So this 4-issue miniseries was written by Paul Allor with art by Andy Kuhn, and I'm gonna be honest, I didn't really care for it that much. I like Hobb, and I like Slash, and I like Mondo Gecko, and I love Herman the Hermit Crab. I just didn't really care for this series all that much. I'm not really sure why, because I like the characters, the plot was interesting. Basically what happens is their human scientist friend, human scientist friend, whose name I can't be bothered to remember right now, gets kidnapped by a separate scientist group to go experiment on new mutants, and Hobb and the Mutanimals have to go rescue her, as well as the mutants that have been created and have been horribly experimented on by this lab group, basically. And what this group seeks to do is to create these mutants to sort of overthrow the workforce and the economy and enslave these mutants into these like workforces as a means of capitalistic gain. And then from there, they can take over the world from there. The main antagonist of this 4-issue miniseries is a demonic-looking woman named Null, which is a callback to the Archie series. And that's what I find interesting about this, is that this 4-issue miniseries feels very inspired by the original Archie comics, especially those early issues, how it was very environmentally conscious and whatnot. But it just kind of fell flat for me. I'm having a hard time articulating why, in terms of the writing, at least, but I just really didn't care for it. There were definitely parts of this that I like. For example, the 3 new mutants that they introduced, which were Mutagen Man, Sally Pride, and Ray Fillet, were all very, very interesting. Mutagen Man in particular, I think, has one of the most tragic stories in this entire run, which I was not expecting. He's very well written and very interesting to read. Sally Pride is also a welcome addition to the Mutanimals. She's really interesting. She's like this lioness who can like drive and fly, anything basically. And then there's Ray Fillet, who I don't really know what he adds to the team right now, but or is it Man Ray? It's either Ray Fillet or Man Ray. They're basically the same character in the franchise anyway, so it doesn't matter, right? But it doesn't really add much to the team or the plot. He's just kind of there, but it's still interesting to see a new mutant get introduced to the overall plot that's going on, and I'm sure he'll do much more interesting stuff down the line. Andy Kuhn's artwork on this story is fine. I think he's also done art for the mainline Turtle series in the past. I might be mistaken though. And it's okay. It's not bad. It's got like a level of edge and grime to it that I like, but it's just, it's all right. It's not generic by any means, and I recognize the hard work and talent that gets put into the series, and I recognize that with every series that I read. Obviously, these things don't just make themselves, but it's all right. It's not bad. It's okay. Definitely not the strongest miniseries that's come out of the IDW Turtle series. If I had to rank just the Mutanimals miniseries on its own, I would give it a modest, like, 3.5 out of 5. It was alright. It wasn't bad. I am still having a hard time articulating why, narratively, I didn't really care for it when, in all honesty, this seems right up my alley. I like Hobb. I like the Archie comics. This seems like it should be for me, but it just kind of wasn't, and that's fine, you know? I also want to know the Mutanimals is kind of placed in a weird point in the book that I don't really like. Like, if you were going from Volume 5 straight into Volume 6, it's going to be really irritating because Volume 5 ends with the death of Donatello, and I really wanted to see that get resolved immediately. I wanted to see how that problem got fixed, or how they were going to handle that going forward, and then having to read through the 4-issue miniseries of Mutanimals characters who I enjoy, but I'm not reading Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for the Mighty Mutanimals. It was a little frustrating for me, which I know is a nitpick, and there's stuff that goes on in the mainline book later that means Mutanimals can't happen later, so I understand why it's placed in the position that it's in. If I really wanted to, I could have just skipped Mutanimals and gone back to it later. I understand it's a nitpick, but still bothered me nonetheless. Moving past that, though, we get issues 45 through 50 of the mainline series, as well as the free comic book day special, and this is the real meat and potatoes of the book for me. Now, these next, 5 issues, or well, 6 if you count the free comic book day special, pick up right where the last book left off with the death of Donatello, and I use death in heavy air quotes because he doesn't really die. What ends up happening is the Fugitoid, right, is able to take Donatello's consciousness and move it into the body of Metalhead, right? Which makes sense because Fugitoid basically did the exact same thing with himself, right? Back when he was Professor Honeycutt, working for the Neutrinos, moving his body into the Fugitoid body, right? So it stands to reason he'd be able to do that. So for a majority of these 5, technically 6 issues, Donatello is in the body, he's piloting the body of Metalhead. right? It's not even like he's piloting, he just is Metalhead now, for the time being anyways, which is really, really super interesting. They kind of did I want to say they did a similar thing in 2012, how Donatello was piloting Metalhead remotely, which isn't entirely the same thing, but I still think it's neat. We also see that after the fall of the Technodrome arc, what's his name, Baxter Stockman, was able to rescue Shredder and is now trying to work with him at TCRI. They're making all these Mausers and all of these like fly robots that they send straight to the home of the Turtles, right, to try to attack and kill Splinter. Casey Jones also gets a lot of focus in these 5 issues, which I like a lot because he's my favorite character in the entire franchise. So I really, really enjoyed getting to read more like almost solo adventures on his part, because now Han, his father, has officially left the Foot Clan and is leading the Purple Dragons down a very different route, right? And he's back drinking alcohol again. Like, he's an alcoholic. He shows up at second time around, drunk out of his mind, and tries to pick a fight with Casey. April O'Neil is also doing her own thing. There's just been this little subplot, basically for the last almost 50 issues, or probably close to like 20 or 30 issues at this point, where April is kind of looking into the secret history of the Foot Clan. Read that miniseries, it was great. And it ends up leading her down this path of this ancient pantheon of gods, right? And she has to go track down this other potential scroll, or I don't know, she has to look for something in California. So she and Casey leave about halfway through this 5-issue run that's located in this book to leave for California and try to track down whatever it is that they're looking for. And that leads us into the Casey and April miniseries, which is at the end of this book that I'll get into later in this video. Back to the main plot though, with the Turtles. They get like swarmed by Mausers and these fly robots that Stockman and Shredder have made together. And Karai actually ends up being the one to rescue them because she believes that this is not an honorable way that the Foot should be operating, right? They should not be sending in these mindless drones to go fight their battles for them. They're ninja. They're the Foot Clan and they're a criminal organization, but they're still honorable ninja at their core. So Karai then takes, on Shredder's orders, the entire Turtle Squad, which is the main 4 Turtles, Splinter, as well as Nobody and Alapex, who are kind of operating as a separate vigilante team from the Turtles, but they have a little team up, and it's pretty interesting. They then get taken to the main Foot Clan headquarters, where they have this like ancient ninja ritual. They have a name for it in the book that I can't remember off the top of my head, where basically the main 4 Turtles have to team up against the main 4 mutants in the Foot Clan, which is Bebop and Rocksteady, obviously, which has a lot of personal vendetta since they're the ones who killed Donatello in the last arc in Volume 5, as well as Bludgeon and Koya, who are the Hammerhead mutant and the, she's some kind of bird. Koya's some kind of bird. I can't remember what she's called, but a big bird mutant, right? And they all have to face off against each other, and whichever team ends up winning will then team up against their master to fight the opposing master. So, obviously, the Turtles win, right? They beat everybody's asses, and now they are able to team up with Splinter, right, to go fight Shredder, all 5 of them at the same time. Also, during the battle, what ends up winning them the fight is Donatello is able to self-destruct himself, because he's still piloting Metalhead at this point, right? So he self-destructs his physical body because Harold, who is the scientist who built Metalhead, is one of Donatello's like friends, allies, I guess, they don't really like each other, and Honeycutt were able to fix Donatello's original body and create a new like metal shell form, since it was just shattered beyond belief by Rocksteady. But they also get help from what appears to be Leatherhead. We never see his face, and we haven't seen him prior to, we may have seen him prior to this series in Turtles in Time, but we don't know for sure. But what looks like Metalhead had a spare canister of mutagen, which he was able to use to help heal Donatello's physical body. So when Donatello self-destructs the Metalhead body to defeat Bebop and Rocksteady, right, his physical form then just shows up in the stadium, and Donatello's back in his proper form, just with a new shiny metal shell. So once all the main 4 Foot Clan members have been defeated, then they are able to go team up against Shredder, and this is one of the most emotional issues in the entire run that I've read up until this point. This is issue 50, right? And to heavy spoilers, Splinter successfully defeats and kills Shredder, like stabs him and then decapitates him. And this is like such a huge status quo change now, because to my knowledge, there's still 100 more issues of this run. So now that Shredder's out of the picture, only a third of the way through, what does that mean for the rest of the series? And they actually answer that question very, very quickly. Karai, who was supposed to be the next in line to lead the Foot Clan, should Shredder ever be defeated, realizes the error of the Foot Clan in the US and chooses to leave for Japan personally, right, like on her own, to try to learn some life lessons. And she passes the Foot Clan onto Splinter, which means that now Splinter is the leader of the Foot Clan, as he was always meant to be back in ancient feudal Japan, and is able to guide them back down a more honorable path. So from that alone, I am like itching to read volume 6, right? Because this is where it leaves off, right? I am itching itching to read volume 6 to see what exactly that looks like. How does Splinter handle sort of rehabilitating the Foot Clan? What happens to Mikey? Because Mikey, this entire arc has sort of been realizing that he doesn't really want to do the whole violence thing if it's just going to lead to more violence. He says, what's the point in fighting Shredder if another villain is going to pop up? What's the point in fighting Krang if we're just going to keep doing this over and over and over again? Is this really our purpose? I thought we had more worth in this, and we were meant to be so much more than this. And now that Splinter is now leading the very Foot Clan that they've been fighting against basically their entire lives at this point, Mikey just dips. He's just gone now. He's like, hey, leave me alone. I don't want any part of this. So I am so excited for volume 6 of this. If I had to rank these 5 issues alone, I have to give this a solid 5 out of 5. This is probably my favorite arc so far. I didn't think anything was going to beat Return to the Technodrome, but oh my god, this was good. Also thrown in there was the free comic book special for, I want to say it was 2015. Let me do a quick check. Oh yeah, 2015 free comic book day special. That's not really important. It's just kind of a recap of everything that's happened up until that point. The book places it right after issue 46 and before issue 47. So I don't think it was super necessary. It gets referenced in issue 47, but if you're reading through this, you can just skip it. It's not really a big deal. But yeah, overall, these 5 issues have been some of the most hype, emotional things that I have read out of this run up until this point. Let me see who wrote these 5 issues really quick. It was written by Kevin Eastman, Bobby Curnow, and Tom Waltz. And art was done by Matteo Santalocco. Matteo Santalocco will always be my favorite Turtles artist. His art is just so amazing. He also did the art and wrote Secret History of the Foot Clan, which, again, I'm going to talk about it a second time in this video. If you have not read, go read it. Even if you're not a Turtles fan, if you just like comics, Secret History of the Foot Clan was so good. Unfortunately, though, this now kind of takes us to what I think is the weakest part of the book and what I found to be the most disappointing part of the book. Next up is the 4-issue miniseries Casey and April, written by Mariko Tamaki with art by Irene Ko. This was really disappointing. I'm going to be honest, this was really disappointing. As a Casey Jones fan, I didn't really dig this. I think his characterization is all messed up. The art feels very like webtoony, and it's just there was so much potential in this story, and there are good things about this story. I'm gonna get into that later, but there was so much potential here for like a Scooby-Doo like esque mystery with like some road trip elements, with some like Indiana Jones esque like action sequences. I don't know if I got like a poor idea of it in my head, but I was really disappointed by this. Especially because it puts a lot of tension on April and Casey's relationship, which feels very out of line because up until now, we haven't really seen a lot of their relationship and what it looks like outside of the farmhouse arc. And that was like 15 issues ago, almost 20 issues ago, right? So all the tension between their relationship and all of the stuff that they get put through that puts a relationship on strain feels very forced. Casey is acting really out of character. April's acting really out of character. And by the end of the book, it's just kind of this really cliche, I am scared of losing you, but you're confident and you're able to defend yourself, but I'm still scared of losing you too. And it's something that we've seen like a million different times in a million different forms of media, and it was just not super well written. And again, the art, I just can't really get past it. It's so somehow bright and also bland at the same time. It feels very, very webtoony, and this like borderlines on like fanfic in my mind. But there were still some solid elements of this. They travel to California to sort of unravel this mystery that's going on, and that's where they meet the Rat King, right, who we've only seen once, I think maybe twice until this point. And we get a lot of lore stuff regarding this like pantheon of gods that exists in TMNT. And we also meet a new one, which I thought was interesting, because up until this point, they've been implying that there's only 3, or at the very least, they've only been showing 3, which is obviously the Rat King. Am I forgetting her name? She's like the Nine-Tailed Fox. She's working with Shredder and the Foot Clan, and the Bull King, or whatever his name was, that's just how I remember him, who showed up in the Ghostbusters crossover, which still hasn't been resolved, by the way, which I find interesting. I thought he was going to pop back up again. But we meet the 4th sibling, who's like this Native American, like, eagle, right? And basically what the discovery that Casey and April end up making by the end of the book is that these are not malicious beings, right? They're kind of sending like a warning down to the humans, like, hey, something big is going to go down and we're going to be watching it with a lot of interest, right? I think the line that's directly from the book is, we're not motivated by malice, we are motivated by curiosity, right? Which I find interesting, because the Rat King definitely seems to be motivated by malice. Like, seems like a really mean dude so far, but that's just me. Definitely don't trust him. Now, what this big event that they're talking about, what exactly that means for the future, I have no idea. I want to say it's Armageddon Game, but I know that doesn't happen for another like 100 issues. So if they're laying down the groundwork for that now, that's kind of crazy. And it definitely can involve Shredder since he's dead. But issue 50 ended with sort of like a flashback with Krang sort of implying that he will return. And he didn't die in Fall of the Technodrome, so that's entirely possible. So I guess I'll just have to wait and see. It'll probably be something with Krang. I don't really know. It's definitely got me interested in what the future of this series looks like. But yeah, overall, I didn't find Casey and April that interesting, especially because it's tacked on right at the end of the book. It's sort of like Mutanimals, but the opposite, where Mutanimals shouldn't have happened as early as it did, but I understand why it did. Casey and April, I'm kind of upset that it was like the last thing I read, because going from the death of Shredder, Michelangelo leaving, and Splinter now commanding the Foot Clan to, again, what feels like a fanfic is kind of jarring, and I'm a little upset by it, but it is what it is. I understand, like, again, you literally cannot place it anywhere else in the book without horribly messing up the pacing of the series, so I understand why it's there. It's just not what I would have wanted out of the series, and I just found it incredibly disappointing. Again, especially as a huge Casey Jones fanboy, it was just, I don't know. I didn't enjoy it. If I had to give it like a score, I'm giving this a 2.5 out of 5. It's just, I didn't dig it, and I was really disappointed by it, and I wish that I'd liked it more. But yeah, overall, I enjoyed this book a lot. This is probably my favorite volume that I've read so far. If I were to take the entire like collective stories in mind and give this one straight review just for the entire book, this is getting a 4 out of 5, right? And that's not a bad thing. That's still a decent score. Those 5 issues are absolutely incredible and are probably some of my favorite Ninja Turtles things that I've ever read, watched, whatever, like ever consumed, period. But Mutanimals, and especially Casey and April being tacked onto this, really bring it down for me. So I think a 4 out of 5, or even a 4.2 out of 5, is a fair score to give it, personally. But that's all I got for this week, guys. Let me know what we want to see next time. And yeah, make sure to like, follow, subscribe, all that stuff. I also have other socials that should be tacked on. It's either here or here. I don't know how these things get mirrored on my phone. So yeah, it's somewhere. You can find me somewhere. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. I'm not calling it X. Basically, any major social media, you can find me there. So yeah, shoot me a follow, check out my stuff, and yeah, have a nice day. Thank you for watching.